Nearly 250,000. That's how many unique listeners the CyberWire reaches every week. We are proud to bring the vital news and insights that each of our listeners rely on for over 6 years. Our sponsors help keep the lights on, and if your company needs to get your message to a very large and influential audience, we'd love to show you how. We can build campaigns for any size company, big or small. Contact us today at thecyberwire.com/sponsor. That's thecyberwire.com/sponsor. And thank you.
This episode of the CyberWire is made possible in part by ExtraHop. Intrusion is inevitable, breaches don't have to be. ExtraHop is on a mission to help security teams take back the cyber advantage. Visit ExtraHop at RSA Conference to learn how AI-based network intelligence stops advanced threats already inside your cloud, hybrid, and distributed environments. Stop by booth S1327 or visit extrahop.com/cyberwire. That's extrahop.com/cyberwire to learn more. DDoS as a weapon in a hybrid war, resilience in the defense of critical infrastructure, offensive cyber operations against Russia. LockBit claims to have hit Mandiant, but their claim looks baseless. Rick Howard joins us with thoughts on trends he's tracking at the RSA conference. Our guest is Dr. Diane Janosek from NSA with insights on personal resilience and the effects of ransomware on business. From the RSA conference in San Francisco, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. Distributed denial of service attacks have become a defining feature of Russian cyber operations in its war against Ukraine. SearchSecurity, quoting research by NetBlocks, notes that DDoS attacks have affected connectivity in Ukrainian cities and have also spilled into countries sympathetic to Ukraine. Operators sympathetic to Ukraine have also conducted DDoS operations against targets in Belarus and Russia. In these operations, the preferred targets have been media outlets. DDoS has been a nuisance-level threat and not a decisive or even significant weapon. A point that SSSCIP Deputy Director Zora made during his media call yesterday was to credit Ukrainian defenders with having blunted the effects of Russian cyber attacks. The Observer Research Foundation has an independent report on the resilience Ukraine has shown in the cyber phases of the hybrid war. Among the most consequential Russian operations was the campaign to take out ground stations essential to the operation of the Viasat network in Ukraine. Disrupted service was either restored or replaced quickly, and the report speculates that Russia, expecting a swift victory, was reluctant to strike Ukrainian infrastructure in ways that would render it inoperable after a Russian conquest. This speculation is perhaps belied by subsequent Russian willingness to reduce entire cities and their infrastructure to rubble. The report draws 3 conclusions important to the cyber phases of any hybrid war. First, despite its impressive modernization and known capacity for electronic and cyber warfare, the Russians have found the going in the cyber battlefield difficult. Of course, we cannot accurately assess the extent of assistance that the Ukrainians are getting from cyber powers like the US and the UK. The second is the importance of resiliency of the digital systems, which means there must be sufficient redundancy built in to be able to take on a determined cyber adversary. Associated with this is the importance of the quality of the EW personnel, since there is little room for error in the cyber battlefield, especially when you are seeking to advance in contested territory. Next-gen systems will probably have to incorporate artificial intelligence and machine learning systems to achieve some of these goals. Another important lesson is the important role that the private sector has, especially in the area of cyber warfare. Ukraine has acknowledged Google's contributions with a Peace Prize. And Starlink made an important contribution to the quick restoration of satellite communication. Ukraine has disclaimed any offensive cyber operations against Russia, saying they're either the work of hacktivists or of sympathetic nation-states, effective allies. In any case, Ukraine lacked the organizational capacity to mount such offensive operations. So if indeed the U.S. and presumably other cyber powers generally hostile to Russia are indeed conducting offensive operations, as General Nakasone said last week, tersely and without elaboration, does this make the U.S. a belligerent? In its journal Articles of War, the Lieber Institute has published a thoughtful essay on the application of the laws of armed conflict to cyberspace. It notes, first, that not enough is known yet about U.S. cyber operations to draw an informed conclusion. From what is known, however, it seems likely that U.S. operations qualify as either lawful collective self-defense or qualified neutrality. For its part, Russia hasn't cared much for the intervention General Nakasone alluded to. A report carried by UNI Sputnik quotes senior Russian officials to the effect that Russia is the one who's standing up for good behavior in cyberspace, that Russia is ready to work out appropriate international legal arrangements with all states that are sober about the threat of cyber warfare. The source quoted is Andrei Kruchkik, a senior Russian information security official. He goes on to denounce U.S. support in cyberspace for the Zelensky's regime's attacks against Russia and warns that should the U.S. continue in its policy, it should expect a firm and decisive response from Russia. The LockBit gang version 2.0 claims to have successfully hit Mandiant, but CyberScoop and Bleeping Computer both report there seems to be nothing to those claims. Mandiant has seen no evidence of any successful attacks, and the purported evidence LockBit has been woofing seems to have been culled from earlier hits unrelated to Mandiant. Mandiant suggests an explanation for the imposture. They say, based on the data that has been released, there are no indications that Mandiant data has been disclosed, but rather the actor appears to be trying to disprove Mandiant's June 2, 2022 research blog on UNC 2165 and LockBit. LockBit was especially exercised by Mandiant's association of the ransomware as a service gang with Evil Corp, and by its suggestion that they operated in the interest of the Russian government. They're apolitical, says LockBit, and they've got affiliates all over the world. CyberReason has released the results of a study detailing the effects of ransomware on business. It was found that 73% of respondents have been the target of a ransomware attack in the last 2 years, up from 55% in 2021. It was also found that paying the ransoms didn't make for better outcomes, with 80% of respondents that paid noting that they were victims of a second attack. More than 2/3 of those surveyed report that their combined losses were between $1 and $10 million, and some organizations reported significant boosts in their security programs and budgets as a result. A few of the more interesting trends the study discovered were the weakest link may be in the supply chain. They said nearly 2/3 of companies believe the ransomware gang got into their network via one of their suppliers or business partners. Ransomware disrupts business operations. Nearly 1/3 of businesses were forced to temporarily or permanently suspend operations following a ransomware attack. They also noted that organizations have trouble coping with double extortion. They said 60% of organizations admitted that ransomware gangs were in their network up to 6 months before they discovered them. This points to the double extortion model where attackers first steal sensitive data, then threaten to make it public if the ransom demand is not paid. Palo Alto Networks Unit 42 has also been looking at trends in ransomware. They see an increase in ransom payments. They say the average ransomware payment in cases worked by Unit 42 incident responders rose to $925,162 during the first 5 months of 2022, approaching the unprecedented $1 million mark as they rose 71% from last year. And as CyberReason also found, the damage extends beyond the direct cost of any ransom payment. CyberReason says that's before additional costs incurred by victims, including remediation expenses, downtime, reputational harm, and other damages. Now, a word from our sponsor, the Cybersecurity Inside podcast. How are NFTs impacting data? What is the benefit of a security champion? Why should we pay attention to AI emotion recognition? Tune in to the Cybersecurity Inside podcast to hear hosts Tom Garrison and Camille Morhart talk with industry leaders about today's most important security and technology topics. In the What That Means with Camille episodes, Camille Morhart asks top experts to explain terms like cybernetics and blockchain in ways we can all understand, and then dives deeper into the hottest topics and arguments they face. Whether you're a CISO, security expert, or just want to know more, the Cybersecurity Inside podcast will help you walk away smarter about cybersecurity and have fun while you're at it. Check out cybersecurityinside.com/cyberwire today to listen to the latest episode. That's cybersecurityinside.com/cyberwire. Or search for Cybersecurity Inside wherever you listen to podcasts. And we thank the Cybersecurity Inside podcast for sponsoring our show. It's easy to get caught up in all of the technology on display here at the RSA conference, but it's just as important to focus on the human element of the industry. Dr. Diane M. Janosek is Deputy Director of Compliance at the National Security Agency. Her presentation here at the RSA conference is titled, Unleash Your Inner Resiliency.
It's not sustainable on a personal level to be in a constant surge. We all have the ability to ramp up and to really charge hard. But cybersecurity, you can't be in a sprint every day. And because the threats are, increasing in velocity, in sophistication, cyber defenders can't sleep. I absolutely love the cybersecurity field. People are so committed to getting things done, to being secure, to keeping the business running, keeping Americans secure. But then you have to balance that. If everyone's looking at you, what are you doing for yourself?
Do you think that it's a particularly American problem? And it strikes me that we wear exhaustion as a badge of honor sometimes. Look how hard I'm working. I haven't slept in X number of days, and I haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. But it's diminishing returns, right?
Right. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Dave. So people look at really hard chargers, and they realize what happens. And a lot of times it's forced recovery. Something happens and they have to, take a break. You don't want to be in a position of forced recovery. And so what you want to really make sure that you do is don't use dedication as an excuse. Being overworked is not healthy. It's not a badge of honor. It's showing that you don't trust your teammates. You can't delegate. People want to know that you have trust in them, that you believe in them, that you know that they've got it. And if you're constantly there, never taking your own break, they won't feel that from you, that you believe in them. And when people don't feel like you believe in them, they're not willing to give their best.
What about for the team leader? How does that person go about making sure they're checking in on the folks that they work with, that they're taking care of themselves, and also that leader's doing everything they can to make sure everybody's in a good place?
I think saying exactly what you just said. When you start the meeting, say, hey, I just wanted you to know that I'm here to talk. You want to talk to me afterwards? I do want to make sure I check in with you. Let me know how I can help you. Where is there, can I offload something, give you more? Are you ready for more? You want a team more? They may want to take more responsibility. And so if you just say, communicate that, hey, I'm looking at this to make sure that you're the whole person when you're here. And when you're here, may not physically, if you're doing remote work, you still want them to be physically present when they are there and really charged and energized and be like, hey, this is what I want to do. Yeah, I'm going to take a break to take my child to soccer, but when I come back, I am fully present. And I want to be fully present, and I'm fully loyal. So being loyal does not mean you have to be exhausted.
It really strikes me that the leaders modeling the behavior they want to see from the folks they work with is really key here, because a leader can say anything they want about taking time off, taking care of yourself, but if they're not actually doing it, everyone else is going to interpret that as being what the standard has been set at.
I agree. And I'm probably not the best example, right? Because
Do as I say, not as I do.
But however, I don't believe in forced recovery. If I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm really kind of feel worn down, or I'm getting grumpy, or
Yeah.
I have to take a break, right? So I am high energy and I work all the time, but I have to have that insight. So the way that I look at it is, you have to have the insight into how you're physically responding and emotionally responding to the environment around you, and if that's changing for some reason, look at yourself. So-and-so is always giving me a hard time. Maybe they're not. Maybe you're the one that's actually just not having the patience that you usually have, because you're just kind of just worn out and you have to recharge. So having the insight into your own reaction to people's behaviors. It's not always them.
What are your recommendations then? I mean, clearly this is a problem. And my sense is that if we are gaining ground, it's not happening very quickly. So how do we, within cybersecurity, how do we move that culture change forward?
Make a decision for yourself. I mean, look around you. You're going to see people that you believe have, a positive outlook. And see what they're doing. How are they handling their life? Learn from them and then apply that to yourself. There was a study done back in the 70s on happiness, and it's still true today. And it said, with success doesn't come happiness. With happiness comes success. So if you can, find people that say, hey, that person's, they're just happy to be here, and they always are delivering. And what's their trick? Talk with them. If you surround yourself with people and then kind of say, what can I learn from that? And then also invest in yourself. So you're constantly having to do the job right, making sure your team is doing the job right, making sure the company stays, profitable, or your business line stays, up, especially with my world in the area of national security. So doing all that, staying that, but what are you doing for yourself for the longer term? And setting the example. Because at the end of the day, Dave, we all know this, people want to work for inspiring, amazing, empowering leaders.
That's Dr. Diane Janosek from the National Security Agency. And now, a word from our sponsor, Microsoft Federal. The Biden administration is taking steps to modernize security approaches across the federal government with a cybersecurity executive order. Microsoft Federal is your partner in meeting those mandates. They help federal agencies better understand the executive order milestones, build a strategic response that aligns to security modernization priorities and executive order requirements, and determine how technology partners can help accelerate the journey. Their unique approach is based on the decades of trust they've earned from partnering with federal agencies. Microsoft Federal empowers agencies with free tools, like a cloud adoption framework and zero-trust reference architecture. Together, we can move forward into a new era of cybersecurity and empower a secure, resilient federal workforce. Learn more at aka.ms/cyberEO. That's aka.ms/cyberEO. And we thank Microsoft Federal for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Rick Howard. He is the CyberWire's Chief Security Officer and also our Chief Analyst. Rick, you and I are walking the floors here at the RSA conference here, and I'm eager to check in with you to see what sort of things are catching your eye so far.
I love RSA. It's kind of like a high school reunion for cybersecurity nerds. You see all your old friends from years gone by, and the conversations just pick up where they left off. I love coming here.
Yeah. So first off, you're spending some time over at the RSA bookstore?
Absolutely, because the Cybersecurity Canon Committee is out in force at the RSA conference. We've set up a shelf or a desk where all the Hall of Fame books are available for buying at the bookstore. And the bookstore has arranged some of the authors to come in and sign them. So if you're looking to get the next big read in cybersecurity, wander over to the bookstore, see the authors, shake their hands. They would appreciate it, and pick up the next great book in cybersecurity.
They may even see you there.
They may, which is different than we've done all for the last 2 years.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Well, let's dig into some actual cyber topics here. I mean, you've been having some meetings. What are some of the things that folks have been talking about?
Well, I got to go over to the Mandiant press conference, right? And Mr. Holquist is the VP of Threat Intelligence over there.
Sure.
And he was talking about Ukraine and Russia and why we haven't seen the giant cyber war that we thought we were going to see on the run-up to that effort, right? And he made one interesting point, is that the reason we haven't seen a big cyber operation could be because the Russians are having trouble managing their infantry and artillery, right? Coordinating what they're supposed to do on the battlefield. It looks like cyber might be third or fourth priority. It's the reason we haven't seen major things going on in the country. And I thought that was a really interesting point.
So they're just busy with the kinetic.
Yeah, more important things.
Yeah, that is a fascinating possibility. What else? Out on the floor here, I know you've been hearing a lot of people talking about virtual CISOs.
Yeah, this is a kind of a phenomenon that's popped up in the last couple of years, and I never really paid that much attention to it, but it looks like it's gathered some legs. A lot of my old friends who were big-time CISOs for Fortune 500 companies have decided they don't want to be real CISOs anymore. They're going to be these virtual CISOs. And they kind of fly in and drop into an organization that needs some help and gets everything organized, and then they get out the door.
Show up like there's a hologram or something?
Yeah, that's the next thing. Right. The next innovation. All right. But it's a really interesting topic, and it's my hot take on this is I think that's the wrong direction. I mean, I like that my friends can do this and make some money doing that.
What's in it for the organization engaging, instead of hiring a real CISO, in air quotes?
Yeah, it's a good question. What I hear people talk about is real CISOs are expensive, because they have all this experience, and maybe they don't want to bring them onto the staff, and that's odd because they pay for other executives to be on the staff. Why would they need to be cheap about this?
Have you looked at the cost of a data breach lately?
Yeah, that we've never broken through that discussion.
Right.
And we were talking earlier today with some of our customers that walked by the booth that 5 years ago we were expecting that CISOs were going to be on the senior executive team. All right, and it was just a matter of time till that was just a normal thing.
Right.
And that doesn't look like it's happening. It's happening somewhere. In some places it's like that. But if this virtual CISO thing catches on, and I think it is, we have lowered the gravitas of that position down to a contractor who comes in and fixes some things and then leaves later, right? To be optimistic about it, some of my friends said, well, one outtake of this could be they bring in this guy or gal to fix things, and then they eventually hire the CISO because now there's a program to run. They come in and establish a program and then go, and then they might hire that person to be the CISO, or they might do something else. But it's a new phenomenon. We don't know how it's going to go in the future. Right?
So it could be level setting, that person comes in and says, hey, this is what you didn't know you didn't know.
Yeah, it could be, right? It could be the company's or the organization's first steps into cybersecurity. We don't want to commit fully to an executive, but let's bring in someone to get us going, and then we'll see where we go from there. It's an interesting idea and something I did not see coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you're looking forward to out there walking the show floor?
I have yet to go around the booth to see all the new companies out there. That's my favorite part about RSA, right? Because it's like Mardi Gras over there, right? So, and I will be doing that later on today, so I'll tell you later.
All right, sounds good. Well, Rick Howard, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible, especially our supporting sponsor, Devo, whose cloud-native logging and security analytics platform is built to transform security operations for today and beyond. Visit devo.com to learn more. Thank you also to our friends at RSA Conference, where the world talks security. Through global events and year-round content, RSAC connects you to cybersecurity leaders and cutting-edge ideas for a safer, more secure future. Learn more at rsaconference.com/cyberwire22. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Rachel Gelfin, Liz Irvin, Elliot Peltzman, Trey Hester, Brandon Karpf, Eliana White, Puru Prakash, Justin Sabi, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. And now, a word from our sponsor, CyberReason. They're out there, and they're coming for you. Ransomware attackers, sophisticated criminal armies bringing organizations to their knees and costing companies millions. But ransomware shouldn't feel inevitable. You should feel invincible. CyberReason is undefeated in the fight against ransomware with the only predictive ransomware protection available, automatically stopping attacks before encryption and empowering security teams with full visibility. It's the ultimate protection against ransomware, an AI-powered defense that defeats ransomware at every stage of the attack, stopping today's threats and ready for tomorrow's. True cyber defense designed for true defenders. Because ransomware won't define this era, those who defeat it will. Visit cyberreason.com to learn more. That's CYBEREASON.com. And we thank CyberReason for sponsoring our show.